Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September Talking TIM webinar. My name is Luana Brashears, and I'll help facilitate today's webinar. The Talking TIM webinar series is brought to you by the FHWA Office of Operations and provides a forum where traffic incident management champions with any level of experience can exchange information about current practices, programs, and technologies. As a quick reminder also, at NOCoE, we offer a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. You can go to NOCoE's website, which is transportationops.org, to browse through links for TISMO resources and news. Previous webinar recordings and case studies can also be accessed from there. Now, I'll cover a few logistics for today's webinar. We are recording this webinar, and the recording will be available on NOCoE's website. All the attendees are encouraged to stay engaged by using the Q&A feature for questions and the chat feature for comments. So these are both on at the bottom of your screen. Make sure that you take a look at those now and see where they are. And if you have any questions, we encourage you to enter them in the Q&A area as they come to your mind at any time. Very important as well, participants will have the opportunity to participate in an open forum during an audience listening session, which will happen at the end of all presentations. So you'll be able to unmute yourself and share questions, new efforts, or recent successes in the traffic incident management area. So this is how it's going to work. There is a raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and then you receive a prompt from Zoom. Please accept that prompt, and then when it's your turn, I'll say your name and ask you to unmute yourself. And after you're done, just lower your hand feature. And also, several of you already started to do that, but please feel free to enter your name and agency in the chat to say hello to your peers. And now, just before we get started, we have a few poll questions that I will launch so we can learn a little bit more about you. So there are 3 questions. Please make sure that you take a look at all those 3 questions. The first one is just to get to know a little bit more about our audience. Which response disciplines are you associated with? So it's a multiple choice question. So if you're involved in more than one of those areas, please feel free to select more than one. And then our second question is, what type of organization do you represent? So this one, you can select one of those answers. Are you a public agency, state, regional, local, or other? Or are you with the federal government, private agency, academic, student, or other area? And then also for our information as well, please enter the name of your organization. We already see a few answers in the chat, but if you can, please add that so we can learn a little bit more about our audience today. We really appreciate that. So I still see a few answers coming in. Very, very interesting to see the variety of attendees that we have today. So give a few more seconds. I see a little bit more than half of you already participated. Please give us a little more information about your background. And I think we have several responses. Okay, I'll go ahead and close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you again. This is just a quick overview if you're curious to see. Of course, several of you responded transportation, but we have very high participation for all the other fields as well. So really good to have all of you here today. Thank you again for being here with us. And then with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to our host for today's webinar, Paul Jordan. He's with FHWA and will be our host for today's webinar. Paul?
Hey, thank you, Luana, for doing all the great work that you do and for supporting us, and the National Operations Center of Excellence for supporting us. We really appreciate it. But more importantly, I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. For those of you that don't know me, Paul Jordan, Federal Highway Office of Operations Traffic Incident Management Team, representing my teammates, Jim Ostrich and Joe Tebow, both of which cannot be here today. Joe is on his way back from the Iowa TIM conference where he participated. And Jim is dealing with some leave. He has to take off for personal issues. So anyway, so that's our disclaimer. I don't know why we have it there, except that the powers that be tell us we need to have it there. So by the way, you can go to the next slide. By the way, it's always so awesome to see so many old friends and some new friends joining us, different names. I always get excited seeing people from all corners of the country participating. That's awesome. But before I get started, back to that poll, you don't need to bring it up. But you know, as you just saw, the transportation participation is much higher than the other disciplines. So yeah, so is there any way we can get those numbers up, get those towing, recovery, public works, law enforcement, fire, EMS? Can we, you know, can you share the Talking TIM webinars? I know every webinar might not be of interest to folks, but certainly some of the topics are of interest, and we just would like to see some more of the other disciplines participating. I think it would be awesome if we could get more fire and law enforcement especially. So with that, today's lineup today, I'm going to give you an update in a few minutes. We're also going to talk about major events, right? We don't talk about that all that often. We talk about a lot of things related to TIM, but not, we haven't, I don't know that we've done a major closure. Maybe we've done 1 or 2 topics over the 3+ years that we've been doing Talking TIM. But today we're going to hear from Michael Welch, Director of Transportation Operations, and Brian White from the TMC manager at the Tennessee Department of Transportation about the I-40 Mississippi Bridge closure, which was interesting. And then Dan Fowley, who's a Bureau of Operations Director at PennDOT, is going to talk about I-95 bridge collapse response and coordination in Pennsylvania. So sort of a different slant to Talking TIM this month, but we thought both topics deserve some time as we plan our traffic incident management programs throughout the country. So we wanted to give you an update on EDC, that Everyday Counts at 7, Next Generation TIM, Technology for Saving Lives is the name of it. Basically, most of the country, 44 states are participating in, 43 states are participating in one form or another. So, we are very excited to start pushing some of the technologies that we'll be pushing throughout the country. And you'll be here. Many of you have already heard from us, but you'll be hearing more about this as we go forward. And every month we try to focus on a EDC topic, which is, I think, on the next slide. No, it isn't on the next slide. It fooled me. But one thing I wanted to, but we did want to make sure we talk to you about some funding opportunities. We always hear about funding. So with the Everyday Counts program, there is a they call STIC grant. So it's $100,000 per state per year. Requires a 20% match from the states, but it's easy money. It's a 1-page, 1 or 2-page application. A lot of times grants can be lengthy applications for grants, but this is a very seamless, very easy. They're willing to give the money out. The STIC committee in each state, each state has a committee that votes on it. Most of them are pretty easy. If you have something you want to spend it on that's TIM related, almost anything TIM related qualifies, because we were participating in EDC 6 and 7. So see some of the ideas that are there on the right, and I think the next slide might show more projects that were approved for the STIC funding. Yeah, so these are some, I love the first one. The first one is the most recent, smart road safety devices for rural first responders. So the state of Maine actually went out and put in a grant, small grant, only 20,000. So you don't have to request all 100,000 from your STIC committee in your particular state, but they asked for $20,000 so they can give smart devices safety devices to some rural responders. They, there's a little bit of a program associated with it, but I mean, that's just a fantastic use. Not only are they using the innovative safety devices, innovation as part of EDC, but they're also reaching the rural community, which is awesome. I'm not going to read that list to you, but I'll give it a second, and you can see the various ways that the stick money has been used in recent years. So this past year, the fiscal year that's ending, it's too late to put in for stick funding for this fiscal year, but that fiscal year starts October 1st, which is next week. So be the first one in. Maybe you'll be the first one to get approved for some idea that you might have for stick money usage. Next slide, please. So if you're from one of these states, you left money on the table. We don't like leaving money on the table because $100,000 for TIM activities can go a long way, right? I mean, we know that. So don't be one of those states that leaves money on the table. So push your stick committee. I'm sure you have something you could use, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 on. So just, want to make sure we don't leave money on the table. And that's why I'm telling you that now. So the next funding opportunity, I think, is on the next slide. There's a whole much larger, more complicated program called the A-Demo program. It basically demonstrating when funds are needed to get to the next level. It's up to $1 million. It doesn't have to be $1 million, but it's what would help, especially with innovation. Every day counts is about innovation, to get states to do a little bit more of a pilot, or to start the program or something along those lines. So that they have funds. That it was the program was stopped for a while. It had stopped for a few years, but the money was still there. But there was some, I don't know, some political thing. Something was going on. I don't even know why. But now it's up and running, alive and well. And they'll be issuing, I forget what the money is, but there's millions of dollars that they'll be providing. And you would go to your state DOT. They would know, your stick coordinator. They would know how to put in an aid demonstration grant. Actually, it would be the Federal Highway Administration Division Office that could provide more information on that. Or you can also go on the website, the Everyday Counts website, aid grant demo program, and you can see more information. Another one is fast running out. Next year there'll be a whole nother NOFO, notice of funding opportunities, but wanted to put it on everyone's radar screen. Again, this came out of the big legislation, the bill, and a couple of it's not specifically called out in like the first page of the NOFO, but it did have some use cases that were tied to us, increase worker safety and reduce crashes and traffic incidents. So that's right down our alley, right? Some big money there, and also it listed emergency vehicles and other public fleets through signal priority. That's part of EDC 7. So hey, just take advantage of these grant opportunities. We wanted to get as much money for TIM as possible, and that's why we're sharing it with you today. So the technologies for the everyday counts that I talked about is, the advanced warning technologies. That's sort of what we're focusing on today. At least that's what we're going to take credit for. The other technologies that we're pushing are debris removal, emergency vehicle lighting, and I always like to call it emergency vehicle lighting, smart emergency vehicle lighting, right? The latest technology. It's not just vehicle lighting. So EVP, the latest technology for emergency vehicle preemption, signal preemption. UAS has been always popular. And then the technologies for EMS, we're just, for that one, we're just trying to get closer to the EMS community with our TIM program. So I urge you all to do so. Just wanted to remind everybody, give everyone an update on the NUG. So if you recall, the National Unified Goal has been responder safety, safe, quick clearance, prompt, reliable, interoperable communication. So over the last year or so, in Talking TIM and some other forums, we had some discussions with you, the community. This isn't the world according to Federal Highway, Paul, Jim, and Joe. This is you providing input. We came up with a new unified goal. So the new unified goal is safety of responders and all road users, right? It's not just about responders, most important about responders, but we want everyone safe, right? Also, it's safe, quick clearance. We still want to get those crashes and other incidents out of there as fast as possible, safely. And then the fourth goal that was determined by you, the TIM community, was communication, coordination, and cooperation. Next slide, please. And we are back to the NUG. We are interested in hearing how folks use it. We're going to try to start using it a little more, so we all have a national goal for those of us in the TIM world. So 27 fatalities this year so far. Responders struck by. They're always painful. The good news is, you know, the numbers are lower than they've been in recent years for responders struck by. For this time of year, compared to the last 4 years, they're at least 3 lower than last year, which was lower than previous years. So I like to think that we're making progress, that we're at least contributing. And if we save just one responder, right, we've saved a lot. We've done a lot. So everything we're doing is working, we believe. I think it's contributing to responder safety. And you know, again, that's important for us, right? So, but it's still 27 fatalities, 27 families that had to go through the pain, and you know, co-workers and everyone else is impacted by just one fatality. So, gonna keep working, gonna get it down to 0. Next slide, please. So just a quick run through on the training numbers. Many of you get these numbers already, so we're going to go through it a little quickly. So 671,000, 72,000, 602,000. So are trained. We've jumped up 12,650. June 19th to September 11th, and that big jump was in part to some of the training that didn't necessarily happen during that period, but was reports that we weren't receiving. We want the reports. If you know of training, or you do the training, or you coordinate the training, it's important to us to get those numbers, so we urge you to give them to us. Next slide, please. So this is the percentage map, you know, everyone established goals, and you can see where your state is. We're trying to push it. We found it interesting that, and we're very excited. We'll call out California today, because California has just conducted a train-the-trainer session. I don't know, it was 30 or 40 trainers in there, and they're participating in another virtual train-the-trainer session. So they're gearing up. They're going to be having a big push for the training. But you know, there's so many states doing an awesome job. We just urge you to keep up with the training and try to make a difference on those fatality numbers. This is just a breakdown. We you know, we want to see the numbers go up, law enforcement in particular, but towing, you can all have an impact on the towers out there that don't necessarily receive the training that some of the other disciplines. So there's different ways of doing that, but we won't get into that today. Here's the numbers by state since the last report. So you can see the progress is being made per state. Training is still active, which is exciting. So we want to keep going. We want to keep those. So kudos to Connecticut and Texas, Missouri, Georgia, Alabama, and the rest of you all that are doing the training. So that's awesome. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, Crash Responder Safety Week is November 13th through 17th. There's been a very active planning process going on. The final planning call is October 11th at 3 p.m. It's all the states are invited. A lot of the times the PIO is participating. So but the big event we're having during that week is a national kickoff on November 13th at 1 p.m. You'll hear more about this. There'll be no Talking Tim that month because we're going to be making that Talking Tim that the kickoff for Crash Responder Safety Week. We expect it to be a little different and exciting. I think the first time we did it, there was over 300 people. So there's going to be some cool people presenting on it. And we urge you all to participate and share the information. So with that, you guys are lucky because now you don't have to listen to me anymore. Now you get to listen to Michael Welch, who's going to talk to us about the Mississippi Bridge Closer. So Michael, from Tennessee, please take it from here.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. It's an honor to be here with you guys today, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our experience. I refer to it as one of the most horrible but rewarding experiences, I guess, that I've ever been through. And here with TDOT, we learned so much about how important partnership is and communication and things like that are with any kind of major incident. So this was a huge learning experience, and we're still reaping a lot of rewards from it today. So we all grown quite a bit. Slide, please. Yes, today I'll talk a little bit about our fracture that we had on the Hernando de Soto I-40 bridge that crosses over the Mississippi, which is one of our major interstates through the country, I-40. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Tennessee. Of course, the bridge we'll be talking about is located in West Tennessee. We kind of refer to ourselves as the West Coast of Tennessee, with the Mississippi kind of our boundary there into Arkansas and Missouri. We've got a little under 20,000 bridges in the state of Tennessee, across the state. And most of those, we have a little over 6,000 in West Tennessee. So we've definitely got our fair share. We have 3 structures that cross the Mississippi River, one north that crosses into Missouri, and then 2 located in Memphis. And we have joint ownership with those, of course, with those states. So we have agreements in place that help us manage who does what, who administrates contracts, who does repair and things like that. So it's very well defined. And have great partnership with them, especially through the closure. We really grew our relationship. Next slide, please. Okay, the fracture itself was discovered back in May of 21, and you can see it. It kind of gives it some scale, since there's some people down kind of walking around it there and kind of making some assessments there, but you can see the scale of what we're talking about. It was a box beam actually that fractured, and I think only one side was completely intact. But major concerns are the inspector was out actually inspecting the truss section of the bridge and just happened to see the fracture, and actually called 911 and then called me directly. So and I told him, his name is Fred, and I told him the other day, I talked to him, I said, anytime my phone rings and the name Fred pops up, I'm answering it. I don't care what's going on, because you definitely got my attention that day, Fred. So we did put in measures to close the bridge immediately to traffic, and communication with locals, with Arkansas. I mean, it was a kind of a governor to governor, commissioner to commissioner. Those kind of conversations took place, and then lots of planning. Lots of playbooks were pulled off the shelf to kind of see, step by step, kind of what would help us, and then just trying to be as transparent as we could, and kind of move this. But of course, the one thing we wanted to do is to evaluate, what kind of condition the bridge was in from a global stability standpoint, and then try to get some things in place to make some repairs. So the closure and the fracture was discovered on May the 11th. The bridge was closed. We, our TDOT, our headquarters construction division, had an agreement, kind of a scope of work in place to advertise to contractors, select contractors that were capable of doing this kind of work by the 14th, and then we had it awarded on May the 17th. So I think that was, I think it was discovered on Tuesday, and we had a contract awarded by the next Monday, I believe. And TIM Strategies definitely played an important role in this. We work with so many emergency management services and different ones. Our teacher, one big thing, before I forget it, one big thing we did, and with TDOT, we have help trucks. I think they have Heroes in Atlanta trucks that support, traffic control. They support motorists and things like that. So we did, everybody had to cross that bridge. You seen the drawing there. We've got two major crossings in Memphis here across the river. So naturally, that other bridge crossing was going to really have ramped up traffic. So we did post help trucks on that bridge or at the foot of that bridge 24/7 throughout the duration of this closure, which was an extended period of time. So next slide, please. We talk about traffic a lot, but this also affected the river traffic. So we were continually communicating with Coast Guard and trying to evaluate the bridge. Like I said, on a global I mean, we were considering wind forces and all these different things come into play, and barges were stacked up on the riverbanks for sure. We had a lot of fuel and just all kind of products, freight stored on the river, and a lot of pressure put on Coast Guard, and so and we did everything we could to get the bridge stable, to get the river traffic open back up as well. So this bridge, diverting 60,000 cars a day is a humongous undertaking there, which did start out initially, had some 3-hour delays on our detour. And we view this as a national impact, working closely with FHWA and several partners. We looked at contact, working with a lot of freight organizations and different groups to establish, kind of national type detours instead of just through the Mid-South, to avoid that. If you go from this I-40 bridge is a 6-lane structure. Our other bridge is what we refer to as the old bridge in Memphis. It's a 4-lane structure with limited shoulders and things like that. So we tried to work with everybody we could to take a larger type detour than just another road through Memphis. But you can see there $2.5 million impact to the trucking industry a day. That's huge. So as far as river traffic itself, I don't even know how they can come up with accurate numbers there, but it is a very busy river with lots of freight coming up and down the river. And like it says there, $9.2 billion supported, just by the port there in Memphis. So it's a huge impact. Next slide, please. So, one of our first things to do, we are very well established here in the city of Memphis, and with ITS, DMS boards, cameras, we are fairly modernized here and update things continuously and keep contracts going continuously to update and maintain our system. So we definitely utilize that. And we have systems that run into Arkansas as well. So we have TDOT boards and cameras in Arkansas. So we use those to their maximum capacity to help spread that on a more localized level. But definitely so many great partnering agencies, the city of Memphis, chamber, just local business owners, trucking industries, Arkansas, Mississippi, FHWA, emergency management service. There's so many good organizations, and really good. We kind of took the lead in setting up kind of communication and gathering to see, and everybody come to the table wanting to know how they could help. There was no blame. There was nobody trying to outdo everybody. They all knew that we had to get our oars in the water at the same time and pull them in the same direction. So I was very proud of that. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a look at our detour. Memphis has a southern loop 240, and the northern part of the loop is 40. And we tried to do several things to keep traffic flowing as quickly as possible. About 10 years ago, if you can see the screen, that Crump interchange, there's a circle there. That is probably the biggest bottleneck on any interstate that we've seen in the state of Tennessee anyway. And we've been trying to get a project let to correct that. We're actually using a cloverleaf ramp as part of the interstate there. We do have it 2 lanes in one direction and 1 lane in the other direction. At the time of this I-40 closure, now we have a project underway to make improvements to that interchange. But you can see that traffic having to make a turn like that and trucks on an inclined cloverleaf ramp is really that's what give us our our 3-hour delays and things like that. So we did make several changes to help improve that by the time we're complete. And I think let's look at that in future slides here. Next slide, please. So as I described, northbound, the detour itself is Interstate I-55, having 2 lanes of traffic going northbound into Arkansas using that cloverleaf style ramp, and then 1 southbound lane on a pretty sharp ramp itself. So not an ideal situation for an interstate detour, not an ideal situation for a functioning interstate, but we did make several modifications. Like I said, TDOT took the lead in pulling every partner together. That several were invited and always welcome to attend a daily meeting where we reviewed traffic data. We reviewed a lot of stuff with the city of Memphis. The impact of the local streets around the area was also impacted. We did end up closing a lot of ramps off I-55 just to help eliminate some points that could cause conflict. And then our forces went in. Oh, I was proud of them. They come in on one Sunday morning and widened that 1 lane southbound ramp to 2 lanes. So that helped a whole lot. And then some of the things we actually were pretty innovative. We had a lot of sharp people attend our meeting, a lot of thinking outside the box by FHWA and several of our traffic engineers. that come up with a lot of things like setting up, working with Waze or Google to set up some kind of virtual closures, and that way trucks weren't led down certain roads and things like that. And that was a continually kind of monitoring situation. Next slide, please. This will give you some idea if this is legible on your screen there, but the green line at the bottom there kind of shows the pre-closure travel times, and then the red indicates at the time of the closure kind of what was taking place there. So you can see some 70-minute travel times there very easily, and kind of what you can see where Saturdays and Sundays fall and things like that. Next slide, please. Then we kind of get into these and we shared this weekly on our web, and we had newsletter go out to media and different partners like the chambers and both Arkansas and Tennessee to kind of make sure everybody was aware of kind of what was going on, and tried to really ramp up our outreach here. We work really closely with Arkansas to help them make some improvements on their end and our end, just to make continual flow all the way through both states here at the Mississippi River. So you can see the red here, and that's not good. That's not a good sign. But as we progress through, there's a couple of slides here. If you'll forward, please. You can kind of see some reductions occur, and this is on July the 4th. So you can kind of see some reduction in the red occur, and we were trying to we tweaked something about every 2 or 3 days. We found some kind of little change that we could make. So we were really ramping up what we had have been taught and met as groups and studied TISMO and the different ways that we can make little adjustments, low-hanging fruit and things like that we could do, adding that lane in and changing signage up, and use of our message boards and different things like that. And so I think, and drivers adapt to different travel times as well to help decrease this. Next slide, please. So you can see it fluctuates up and down a whole lot, just depending on the time of the year and kind of what's going on. We did lots of traffic studies and pulled data from several different areas. Next slide, please. And I think we're at the end of July here, and I wouldn't say got things perfected, but we knew it become predictable after a while, and we had tweaked and made smaller changes. You could see incremental, smaller improvements in the travel times there. Next slide, please. So the impact to the local, the city streets was great as well. Especially we've put all of I-40 traffic on I-55, and they've got a bottleneck and a cloverleaf ramp. So they will a lot of times spread like wildfire out away from those 70-minute travel times and the queuing to try to find some different way to go somewhere. So we worked really closely with the city of Memphis and their traffic division to close some things down and adjust signal timings and put up some message boards around town to kind of help do this. We're still working through a lot of major events, NBA games, and Memphis has a lot going on at certain times, so have to be aware of that. And I think we ended up developing a calendar with major events on it, and keeping that as a reference guide. So that was a good pickup for that. Next slide, please. The outreach, our public relations division worked overtime continuously to try to keep everybody aware of kind of what was going on. We share the traffic data, we share progress of the repair process itself with business owners. And I've always said, bad news isn't always encouraging, or you don't get a positive response, but just the fact of people knowing things makes a world of difference. Even though it's not the best, at least they know, and there's no surprises. So next slide, please. A little bit about the repair, just a slide or two. The repair process was, of course, we broke it up into 3 phases. I talked a little bit about global stability earlier, and that's just something to make sure it's stable to get on and work on, and put plates on to beef up that box that was fractured. The second phase was actually installing large hydraulic jacks and 3-inch rods to take tension off the fractured member, the fractured box, and add the steel. And then phase 3 was just adding some more support, and then loading the bridge up with sensors and testing it, how it reacted to loading once that was complete. Next slide, please. I don't know if that video, it did play. So our maintenance guys got to play a hand in it as well. They were tickled to death to do that. So they brought in loaded dump trucks and would run them at different speeds in echelon and different paired up in different ways, so we could check the bridge and at different locations how it was responding to loading. So that was pretty neat. Next slide, please. So takeaways, definitely collaboration, being as transparent as possible, bringing in every good partner, trying to keep a good attitude all the way through it and be positive. I think we had a lot of good leadership. People step up and take ask what they could do to help. And just that day, it was a daily drive to get that. We did use CMGC. If you've heard of that's a contracting method that we use to repair the bridge. It's not always the cheapest way to go, but given the time factor here, we need to get the bridge open as quick as possible. So that's what we use there. Fracture discovered on May the 11th. Damage repaired in 84 days, which was a couple weeks ahead of schedule. Lots of press. I think we had the secretary come in and visit with us while it was down. Took advantage of the downtime to make some repairs on I-40, and I think that will wrap it up for me. Is that that's the last slide? Yeah, I really am grateful for the opportunity to talk about the project. I hope it was of some interest to you guys, and we love to talk about our projects at TDOT, the good ones and the not so good ones, and we all got takeaways from it.
Hey, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. There's a lot goes on there. Just by a little personal memories, my flashback of my childhood. My father was a bridge inspector in Massachusetts, and he actually shut down a bridge in Boston once. His bosses weren't listening to him, and after the 3rd or 4th inspection, he got someone's attention, and they quickly closed it down and caused a big mess in Boston. I don't know the details. I was a kid, but just I couldn't help think of my father back then, and what must have been involved. I was remiss in reading Michael's short bio, so I'm going to do that and then introduce Dan by reading his bio. So Michael is a professional engineer with the Tennessee Department of Transportation since 1993. He started out in the construction office, and today he serves as Director of Operations for West Tennessee, overseeing construction, maintenance, materials and testing, traffic operations, as well as Memphis TMC and the HELP program. He holds a BSCE from the University of Memphis and an MSCE from University of Tennessee in Knoxville. So sorry about not introducing Michael properly, but as you can see, he's a very experienced man, and I think pretty busy for him to be here with us today by the the sound of things. So thanks again, Michael. Really appreciate it. So we're gonna questions will be after Dan on these particular topics, and then we'll have a some question open session or some questions that I'll ask you to answer. But for now, another very busy man that we're honored to have with us today is Dan Fowley, who has been with the Pennsylvania DOT for nearly 20 years and was appointed to his position as Director, Bureau of Operations in May of 22. He is currently oversees the highway safety and traffic operations, asset management, winter operations, emergency and incident management. Whew, that's a lot. Dan graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in 2003 with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering with specialization in transportation. So, Dan, thank you for being with us. And if you don't mind, could you take it from here?
Thanks, Paul. Yep, I'll take it from here. So next slide. So today I'm going to talk about the rebuilding of I-95. So just to provide some context to everyone, the map on the left there is so this is in the Philadelphia area. It's just northeast of Center City, Philadelphia. We had a 8,500 diesel tanker pretty much crash on that ramp to the right there, hitting the back wall of the abutment and catching fire and pretty much creating a significant fire to the point where we lost the northbound lanes. And we'll have some photos later on of the southbound lanes and why that had to be removed as well. So next slide. So before I kind of get into that, I'm going to just kind of briefly describe our region. So we have 11 engineering districts in Pennsylvania. Of those 11 engineering districts, we break ourselves into 4 traffic operations sections. And as you can see, we have the yellow, which is our western. We have a central, which is the green. The I-80 corridor or the eastern, and then we have the southeastern, which is pretty much our Philadelphia and suburban Philadelphia districts or counties. Next slide. In addition to that, our planning partner, which is Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, has a lot of different TIM teams. So we've TIM has been a very focal point within the region. There's routine meetings on how to handle very complex day-to-day operations. So I think this component really helped build some of the relationships to really hit the ground running. This isn't something that we've ever really planned for, but there has been other significant incidents in the past that have kind of led to having that cooperation, good communication, and that incident command structure. Next slide. In addition to that, Pennsylvania has kind of built over the years a statewide structure where everything really kind of filters into our Pennsylvania Emergency Management. Our PennDOT Area Command or our central office is co-located with our Emergency Management Center, as well as our Pennsylvania State Police or PSP. They have a watch center that we communicate with regularly, as well as our Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. In addition to that, when we do get activated, we do have our district incident command centers stand up and provide real-time information from the field of what's actually happening. So we have, like I mentioned, 11 engineering districts. We have 67 counties, and really those counties are really providing that real-time information up to the districts and essentially to PennDOT Area Command. We've implemented this for several years. A lot of focus around winter operations, but really use it for any type of incident management structure. And I kind of explain that here in a little bit. Next slide. In addition to that, we also have coordination from other partners. So as you can see, our Eastern Transportation Coalition has a number of contact lists that they prepare and utilize. Typically, our statewide traffic management center provides email correspondence to all of our stakeholders, all of our partners as to updates. This is in particular updates on the I-95 situation. As you can see on the bottom, we have the various stakeholders, anywhere from state agencies, federal agencies, to transit organizations, planning partners. We have regional cooperations groups like Transcom and Eastern Transportation Coalition, other states. So we do try to routinely communicate with our other states, close proximity. We have our trucking associations, and we have 2 avenues through our trucking associations. And on the far right is really some of the mapping providers and some of the vendors that we utilize for the I-95 closure, and really being able to get that real-time information out to those partners so they can kind of put hard flags into the system, be able to provide advanced notification. And we worked with those guys very closely as this situation kind of transpired. So next slide. So this is just kind of a snapshot. So it was a Sunday morning about 6:15 when this crash occurred. We had 2 operators on duty in our Philadelphia Traffic Management Center. From there, we did get a state police report at 6:19. We found it relatively quick, within 2 minutes on one of our cameras, and really began the coordination with that. Within approximately 15 minutes, we had pretty much all of our executive staff within that region notified. Within about a half hour, statewide, we were kind of notified, and within about an hour, that structure that I talked about, we had the area command, the incident command, and then we also had the county manager on scene at the joint facility to kind of coordinate operations on the field itself. So next slide. In addition to that, like I said, our ICC was activated about 9 o'clock. This is kind of included where we had our regional traffic leadership. We had our traffic press office. This is kind of where they kind of coordinated with my office on the statewide level to provide different up-to-date inputs. At the statewide level, we were coordinating with Federal Highway and other partners pretty routinely as the situation was still being handled by the first responders. In addition to that, we do have kind of a full camera network on the corridor, so that really helped in making kind of some informed decisions as it related to the traffic conditions and traffic impacts that we were kind of seeing out there. Next slide. So here's just some brief photos. The upper left that's the south side of the bridge. The steel was already starting to buckle based on the intense heat that was coming from the northbound side. As you can kind of see, the northbound side, that several photos of the collapse, and then one of our county managers kind of took a photo from the top view as the fire was just kind of extinguished throughout the process. So next slide. So immediately we started kind of using some of the real-time data we had. So we had streetlight data and we had INRIX trip data. We kind of utilized that to really figure out the origin destination locations, figure out where we were going to kind of implement the various detours that were needed to kind of deploy along the corridor. In addition, this is a very heavily traveled corridor, so our transit organization was also kind of working up a plan at this point on Sunday midday on Sunday to kind of work through any of the logistics with that. Next slide. So this is kind of a map kind of showing the different aspects of the project. So we had 3 different detours that we implemented. We had a global detour, which the global detour essentially went into New Jersey and went completely around the city of Philadelphia to the south. So typically you can pick up New Jersey at the southern border of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania and Delaware, and you can take 295 pretty much all the way up through New Jersey to kind of bypass this. So that was the global detour we were telling from, and we were having the states kind of message that from as far back as they were willing to provide that information. In addition to that, we provided a PennDOT regional detour, which allowed traffic to get on what was our US 1 Roosevelt Boulevard, where we have approximately 6 lanes each direction. But we had 47 traffic signals on that corridor. So there was some coordination with trying to maximize traffic signals on that corridor, as well as redispatch freeway service patrol trucks to that corridors if we had disabled vehicles or anything like that. So that was the detour we were actually messaging in Pennsylvania on the dynamic message signs for individuals to kind of utilize that. In addition to that, the city of Philadelphia implemented a local detour, which I'll talk about here on the next few slides. But I did want to mention we did provide travel times through our 511. We created a special page on our 511 website that really kind of provided real-time views for everyone to kind of see. And the last thing I did want to mention is we did provide portable cameras to be utilized at key decision points, as well as what I'll kind of talk about a little bit later is the live cast that was provided for the public to kind of see the progress of the bridge. Next slide. So the freeway service patrols. So on the left, you can kind of see the freeway service patrols along our Schuylkill Expressway, which is 76. That was in purple. What we had on 95, which is in both orange and that teal. Based on the event and the incident, we did change the configuration and actually moved some of the orange freeway service patrol to Roosevelt Boulevard US 1, and that's that light blue, to provide extra coverage since the bridge closure really kind of we are providing detours farther back, and really kind of repurposing or utilization of the freeway service patrols in that area that pretty much run 24/7, 7 days a week. Next slide. So regarding kind of the local detour, so city police were instrumental in providing traffic control. So we were what I failed to mention is the corridor normally carries about 160,000 vehicles a day. So it's a very, very significant corridor, 4 lanes each direction. Pretty much with the local detour city police, we're changing 2-lane roads into one-way directional roads, and really kind of changing traffic patterns in the area just to keep traffic flowing, so we didn't have queued traffic up for multiple hours along the way. Like I mentioned before, we did have portable cameras at key decision points to really kind of understand when we did have queuing occurring and at what times of day. A lot of this was kind of coordinated on that Sunday afternoon and really implemented that Sunday evening, expecting a significant impact to Monday morning commuter traffic along the corridor. Next slide. So this is just kind of I'm not sure why this one's not coming up. There you go. So this just kind of gives a little bit of the adjustments that were kind of made at the closure points. Just keep clicking. So you can kind of see the closure point to the north, the closure point to the south, and then we also provided a closure at the Betsy Ross Bridge to restrict traffic from going to I-95 North. In addition to that, we did have additional kind of closure points and go ahead, next slide. Keep going. All right, you can click through all this, sorry. So what we did on the ramps is we actually made the ramps, they were single lane ramps. We actually doubled up the ramps where to try to maximize the amount of traffic getting back on 95 when you know, around the bridge area itself, because we had a route further down on Cotman Avenue that was allowed us to provide traffic back onto the interstate there. Go ahead, next slide. Just shows the ramps that we kind of bypassed with the traffic. All right. Next slide. Okay, so we did have a vast, as I mentioned, we did have a vast camera coverage area along the corridor. As you can kind of see the dots here, those are the cameras. What we did have was we did have a fiber outage as a result of the crash and the closures. So we did have several cameras that were down for 2 to 3 days before we actually had a contractor to go out and restore those cameras. So those portable cameras became very handy in being able to kind of move those to decision points and then remove them to other points as we kind of move forward. Next slide. And these are just the mobile cameras and the closure points that were kind of observed. With the mobile cameras, we actually implemented a live feed. This became very popular. This actually was very beneficial too, from the perspective it kept individuals that wanted to see progress or wanted to see the site away from the site as well. So this was kind of a lesson learned that we kind of learned from this project, was to utilize this as a low cost solution. Typically the cameras that we have are between $10,000 to $30,000. We were able to kind of deploy those cameras on site and have those and kind of show the progress in real time. And that really became pretty much a big hit in the city of Philadelphia to kind of really show we were working on getting the road restored 24/7 throughout the duration of the project. Typically, it took us about 4 days to get the demolition of the bridge completed, and then 10 days total to restore traffic on the road since the closure. Next slide. So this is the interim solution that we have in place right now, where we have traffic on the inner lanes, 3 11-foot lanes. It's a very tight cross section. The reason why we did this was actually for constructability. We're building the 2 outer lanes. They're the way the bridge is broken into 2 fourths. So we're building the 2 outer lanes, getting those lanes that we can shift traffic to those outer lanes, and then restoring the inner lanes to what they previously were, and allowing the ramp to be opened up long term. So in coordination with the various stakeholders, this was very successful. very much a lot of coordination with county EMS, the city of Philadelphia, state police, and our stakeholders. We had pretty much every day VIP visits from either administrators from the Federal Highway Administration, to the president, to the governor, pretty much, and our secretary remained on site from the start of the duration to the end of the duration. He was there every day with the crew, and that seemed to work pretty well, to kind of show, hey, we're trying to get the road open for the local traffic kind of going through the road itself. Next slide. So this is just a brief video kind of just showing the progress from the live cast that was provided. Obviously, this is a time lapse of construction. They're using very lightweight glass polymers to really build up and 18-inch lifts, and putting cages around those lifts as they kind of compact the information, impact the roadway itself. In a second here, it'll kind of shift to another camera we put on site once the end walls were placed and put in place, and really to kind of show the overall progress of everything as it was kind of restored. So. I thought they were. Oh, they were just taking the time lapse from the one camera. So we did have another camera on top that was part of that. What we found is people, because of the live cast, people were very interested in transportation. We had a lot of different media sources from bars within the city of Philadelphia that were interested in streaming the live cast, to having it on the Jumbotron at the Phillies game, watching that progress that was kind of being completed in real time. And then really to restore it on June 21st, when we reopened the bridge. There was a parade of the first responders that responded to the incident right out of the gate. And they were the first ones to kind of cross the bridge along with the mascots of Philadelphia, and then they opened the road up very quickly thereafter. And that was on a Friday afternoon, when everything was open. So with that, I think that kind of concludes my presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. That was awesome. What a mess, huh? So it looks like we have time for questions, and then we have some open discussion time if we have time. But there is a question that I think Vishali put in the chat pod from Antonio Gittins, and he wanted to know a little bit more about the communication with Waze and Google to push out the road closure information. Did the DOTs have direct relationships in advance with those providers, or did they start that day? Dan, why don't you go first since you're on camera?
Yeah, so we had those partnerships built. So we had partnerships with Waze, we have partnerships with NREX. DriveWise, our Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission had a relationship with DriveWise, and we were able to connect and get everything kind of work through that day. But generally, everyone was very cooperative. Everyone was very supportive. We were getting kind of calls pretty much from other states that wanted to provide input or assistance of their lessons learned and other things like that. But I think since everything was kind of moving very quickly, we just kind of progressed along and tried to handle any traffic related issues and getting that out to the media. But then in addition to that, also getting those advanced notifications out through those three detours that I mentioned.
Excellent. Michael, do you have anything? Michael or Brian, I guess.
Yeah,
Brian's going to help me with this one.
Okay.
Hear me?
Hey, Brian.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Paul? Yes. Prior to the bridge closure, we actually had established some relationships with Apple, Google, DriveWise, and Waze, and just thankful we had that partnership, because during the actual closure, we had to set up some virtual closures to keep those 18 wheels from going down Riverside Drive, and we had to check them periodically, what maybe once or twice a week. Because they kept popping open, and we kept having a large number of 18-wheelers going down those very narrow roads and down our downtown streets that's incapable of handling those loads. But it all worked out for us.
Yeah, it sounds like having those relationships in advance, right? And that's what we always talk about when we're talking traffic incident management. Let's create the relationships before the incident happens, right? So I guess well, Brian, while you're on, do you guys already have, outside of, of course, the providers there that we just talked about, but with your police and fire, and do you and towing, other responders, you guys meet with them as a routine, or do you have those relationships already established?
Yes, through our TIMS committee, we have a real strong TIMS committee within Memphis, and we work hand in hand with Memphis Fire, THP, Memphis Police Department. And as a matter of fact, we do all the TIMS training. We train all new cadets through MPD Academy, and we've just been tasked with training all the Memphis Fire Department in school. And we train all the new recruits, but sometimes it's hard to get some of the veterans trained. So now we've been included into training TIMs doing their in-service. So we have a real strong connection with all the local municipalities and the emergency responders within this area.
Yeah, so important and helpful. That's awesome. I wasn't fully aware of that committee in Memphis. I sort of suspected, but I wasn't quite sure. So I'm really happy to hear about all that. That's awesome. And Dan, I know a little bit more about Pennsylvania, but in the statewide committee, can you talk a little bit about those pre-established relationships that I know you have?
Yes, so we have a statewide committee. It's called Pen Time. That's really kind of getting all the major agencies together at a statewide perspective. But like I mentioned before, our Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission does a very good job with our multiple TIM teams within the Philadelphia area, and being able to kind of coordinate, and they meet regularly. They do tabletop exercises, and just build those relationships that are really kind of very critical and very needed. And it really made a very difficult situation very smooth, and really everyone was very much based on the situation. Everybody was very comfortable with where we're at from a response perspective. Now, obviously, there was a lot of coordination that was being done regarding kind of the interim solution, building the bridge, but a lot of that focus was being able. We were able to kind of make a lot of that be focused towards that, and really just allow the incident response to be kind of coordinated through the traffic management centers, and in getting that information out to through our statewide traffic management center to other states, to other stakeholders, and really making it a very beneficial overall effort.
Yeah, that's awesome. Our Chris King, that leads those programs in DVRPC, is very active with us, and he's done a tremendous job there. And DVRPC in general, their whole philosophy there. So if you don't know what Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, they're basically the MPO for the Philadelphia region, and they touch New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So they're ideally positioned to help with TIM, and there's many MPOs throughout the country that are positioned the same way. It's just that we're only aware of maybe a dozen or so MPOs that participate at that level. So so reach out to your MPO if you want some help. They're often they're positioned in more ways than one to help. So Is there, you know, Michelle, was there any other questions? Luana, was there any other questions that directly for these folks on this topic?
I think
don't
we had
see.
some questions in that document I sent. But no specific questions from the audience.
Okay. All right. So we you know, this is the listening session. So want to know if anyone had anything to that they'd be interested in asking or talking about up front. And then if not, we have some questions that will hopefully spur more discussion. So I'll hold it a second, see if anybody has anything. Nothing on your mind today. Okay, all my quiet friends. Oh, Brian Purvis, good one. So for those of you that are familiar with, we have an annual TIM self-assessment that used to be done every summer, and then the last few years it was done every fall. It's on hold until the spring. For those of you that don't know, it's the self-assessment is completed, recommended to be completed. It's not required, but there's a series of questions that provides the status of your overall TIM program for you, and then recommended actions to improve the TIM program. So there was some bureaucratic issues that I needed to get approval for that I hadn't got approval, even though we've been doing it for 20 years. They basically, to make a long story short, put us on hold, but we will expect that self-assessment to come back in the spring, and it will be you know, there's been some updates, there's some work going on, updates to the tool. We're trying to make it easier and more efficient to use. We've always tried to do that, but we continue to make progress in that area. And Mr. Purvis, if you'd like to come on, do you have anything else that I missed there?
Paul, can I make a comment on that self-assessment?
No.
This is Vaishali. So recognizing that the self-assessment isn't being promoted by the Federal Highway Program, the paper self-assessment form can still be accessed and used by anyone or any organization that wishes to use that as sort of their annual assessment and marching orders, establishing marching orders for the next year. So, you know, that is still available.
That's a good point, extremely good point. And actually the online version is actually alive and well. If someone wanted to access that, we could provide more information on that. So that's a good point. And for those of you that don't know Vaishali, she is basically a contractor support, but does the bulk of the work here, getting us ready for the self-assessment. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for all your hard work, Vaishali.
Happy to take part. And
yeah, Paul, it's Brian Purvis. So yeah, great point. The tool is still accessible, and I think what we'll do is if you go ahead and fill it out and submit it, we can send you an acknowledgement that we received it. But the true bulk of it, the training for the updated tool, once that's all been signed off on by Federal Highways, as soon as we get that done, we'll have a formal training session on it. But yeah, you can still access the previous tool if you want to go ahead and do it. And we'll do whatever we need to do to coordinate that for next year. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And if you guys hadn't, I don't know Brian. Brian is contractor support for a few states out there, and for this self-assessment, obviously. So thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you bringing that up.
Hey, Paul, there are a few people with their hands up. David Harden is next.
David, Dr. Harden.
Hi, Paul. How are y'all? Great presentation. Lots of great stuff. Just want to let everybody know that on October 11th this year, I'll be presenting a 1-hour overview of TIM and why it's important to get TIM trained at the, it's called the Way Out West, or WOW EMS conference. That's funded by the Navajo Nation EMS. So it's going to be a large event. My presentation, I'm developing a PowerPoint. Right now it's stopped at 64 slides. It's an overview of all 9 modules for the TIM class, kind of give them an idea of what the TIM entails, why it's important, just some things they'll learn, to give them a little bit of a taste of what's the full training is going to be like, and then encourage those who want to be trained. We'll hook them up and do some institutional training for train the trainer sessions afterwards, kind of lining things up for Crash Responder Week as well. So it's a good segue for that event. But anyway, I'm going to have my AZ TIM Coalition TIM instructors review my presentation, make any adjustments to that so it's clearer, more concise, and it's accurate for sure. And then I'm going to test it out, and then I'll share it with you all. If you're interested in using it as an example or chopping it up, feel free. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that's what we're doing so far at this point.
Thanks, Dr. Hyden. Really appreciate that. And when he says AZ, that's the Arizona TIM Coalition. David's on the board there, statewide TIM Coalition that they have. That's awesome. That's really awesome that you're working with the Navajo Nation on that. That's thanks for sharing that, David. Someone else with a hand up?
Yes, Mark Brown's hand is up. Mark?
Go ahead, Mark.
I think Mark needs to self-unmute.
I'm really busy right now, so I'm doing some things. So I'll take a look, okay? Because I was busy the whole morning and then now too.
Okay, put him back on mute. Is there anyone else with the?
No, I saw the email.
No, I think there's somebody else that has unmuted. Mark is still muted. So if you're not speaking, be sure to mute yourself. And Mark, if you're having trouble unmuting, feel free to text through the chat pod your question, and we'll be happy to try to get an answer or hear what you have to say. So, Paul, while we're waiting for that, do we want to try to move to the listening session questions?
Yep, as long as no one has their hand up.
Yeah, I think that's it for hands up.
Okay, because I can't see the hands up myself, but okay. So communication strategies for major events. We're interested in knowing.
Paul, sorry, one hand just came up. Mahesh Pandey.
Yeah, I'm Mahesh from California Department of Transportation. Thank you very much. And then it was a great presentation today. And from California side, so we just completed the TTT training yesterday. It was great outcome. So there were around 30 people in the training, and then we are hoping to do the same similar trainings in the future also. And for the preparation of the CRSW, so we are bringing up more stuff on board. I'm working on that right now, and yeah, that's it. And we are having this Team Academy sometimes next month. I think it'll be before the CRSW. November program, yes. And then we are working on that because I'm also new here, and then I'm bringing so many stuff together at the same time. And then we just have completed the quick map system, added the charging facilities, and then it's the rest areas and all these, and then how the areas are working. Those things, and then we are working with the geofence now for the work zone safety. Yeah, there's a lot of initiatives going on, and then we will bring some, as a whole in a bunch, in a package sometimes to the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and the TTT was a train-the-trainer session.
Yeah.
Acronyms. We all talking acronyms. I caught it, but it wasn't clear. But so we're very excited. I think I mentioned that earlier today that we were excited about having the California reviving the TIM stuff, all the TIM activities. So led by Caltrans, and I'm sure soon behind will be the CHP, California Highway Patrol. So
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. So I'm not sure. There's one question in there, but I don't understand the question. So talk about international What is the function? I just don't understand the question. So we'll go on to the poll question. In the last 9 months, how many major events did your area or your agency have? We're defining full closure for this purpose as a roadway closure lasting 4 more hours. Pick one, please. Okay, do we have answers there? Did that people answer that question?
Yes, indeed, Paul.
Okay.
You should be able to see the results at this point. So more than half are showing less than 9 incidents, these major events, so about 1 a month or less. But there are 15% that say that they have more than 24, which is about 3 a month. So there are things that happen, whether it might be a full road closure because of the things that happened in Tennessee or Pennsylvania, or it could be things like flooding events. So it's interesting to see.
So when we were planning for this call and I saw the poll question, I said no one's going to answer more than 9, right? And Vishali's laughing at me right now. So because I said no way more than 9, and look at all we have over 9. So it's interesting to hear. Interesting. Thanks very much for that.
I'm curious, has anyone seen an increase just because of climate change or other reasons in terms of the frequency of these major emergency events? Feel free to raise your hand and speak up. And if not, we can go to the next question and then probably close after that.
Communication strategies for major events. For major events, how seamless were communications with the partners, local agencies, state agencies, Chamber of Commerce, freight, constituents, and I'll add in media and other things. So if you could provide us with that info.
Yeah, this is a great question, because if we find that there's a lot of people that really need to get more organized, then maybe it's another Talking Tim on that topic. But if most people already feel that they're pretty well organized in terms of collaboration and communication amongst their partners, then that's a big gold star for TIM programs.
Yeah, so let's see what we got there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it looks like there's still work to be done. 20%, 21% are very organized, and almost 40% are, close to being well organized. So it's great to say nobody felt they were disjointed, and there's 9% that probably need to step it up a little bit. So that's not bad at all.
Yeah, so maybe we can feel how we can contribute to that. So I am surprised that very organized, because when we have traveled, I haven't done it in recent years, COVID and everything else, but we did workshops throughout the country. We did, I don't know, 70, close to 70 of them. The most common complaint the other responders had was lack of proper communication. So maybe we've improved in over the years. I think we probably have, but there's clearly more work to do. So thanks, Todd, for that. A recent closure was due to an EV fire that took over 4 hours to extinguish. So that's a whole nother issue. It's on the horizon, is that EV fires and how to deal with them for TIM. Not how to put them out, because I'm not going there, but what are the TIM strategies? We're working on that, and we're trying to provide more information on that. So one more, and then I guess we're done. Yeah, if your agency had TIM detour plans for, or a playbook for major incidents, they proved useful. All right, let's see. Okay, good. I know myself, when I was in that role in Massachusetts, I wouldn't use the playbook as much as I should. Of course, they were all paper back then, and now they're mostly electronic, I suspect. But that's good. I'm glad folks are using that, but looks like more work to be done there too. So
Yeah.
with that, we're gonna close it up. Isha, you have something else?
Nope, that's it.
Hey, so thanks everyone for participating. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for joining us again. Next month, we didn't give you what we have for next month. We're still lining it up, but we do plan on having a topic, at least one topic, I believe, on an update on the Safety Service Patrol research that's going on. So we'll be announcing the other topic or topics very soon. So thanks again, everybody. Please stay safe. Talk to you all soon.